Coaching with Jamie, your dose of coaching from a leadership view. Whether you are a teacher leader, district leader, technology coach, instructional coach, or building leader, this podcast is for you. With a background in instructional technology and media, as well as educational leadership, I use my middle ground instructional coaching role to open conversations around practices we face daily in education. So if you find something valuable here, like, share, and be sure to subscribe to continue the conversation. I'm super excited to be heading into episode 4, and I feel that the time is right for us to talk about something very near and dear to my heart, which is empathy, caring, feelings, and joy. So you're in episode 4. The other thing you're going to learn is, how addicted I am to all things Friends. Yes, it was a part of my young adult life that I simply try to relive over and over. In fact, this summer, I watched so many episodes, and trust me, I laughed as if it was the first time I'd ever seen them, because watching Friends gives me joy. It's just a reliving the opportunity to think back on those days and reliving those years, joyful. Joy, of course, is an emotion, and one that I think we can agree is a welcome emotion among all of them. And today, that is exactly where I want to steer this ship. Now, you might wonder why a podcast on instructional coaching and educational leadership would ever veer into the emotion world, but I assure you that emotions are very much at the core of many things that we encounter on a daily basis as school leaders. You see, the last 16 months stirred emotions in us that likely we never expected to see or feel. From our home lives to our professional lives, there was much to stir that emotion part in us. And while we seem to be somewhat on the path to more normal practices in our daily lives, maybe, there are always going to be those lingering feelings that remain, as well as the new ones that arise because of maybe those media communications you're seeing on TV or even your district communications. I'll be very honest, from the time that I prepped this podcast to the time that I go to record it, we've gone from a confident mask optional opening plan for our schools to a, who knows what's on the board agenda kind of moment based on what's in the news today and a lot of very arching unknowns. And if you know emotions, you know that unknowns are at the very core of why emotions rise. So today I'm going to challenge you to consider these elements of leadership and think about how you can be a teacher leader. That's right. You don't have to have a leadership role to be a leader in this capacity, but a teacher leader, an instructional coach, a technology coach, any kind of coach that supports learning and people, or maybe a school leader, district leader, someone who is dealing with people on a daily basis. And that's all of us, let's face it. I want you to be one who seeks to be in touch with the emotions that have arisen and will arise as we interact with those who we work with. Today, there's going to be 2 very important pictures painted, but I want to keep them brief for one main reason. And that reason is I want you to be able to come back to this podcast as many times as necessary to be able to think about something that may have happened and remember that this podcast exists as a way to remind you of some key components to working through emotions in your day-to-day work. So I want to paint this picture first. Have you ever been in a situation where a student or a peer perhaps was in some type of medical emergency? Have you dealt with a heated parent conference that either took over your entire prep period or your peer's entire prep period? Have you walked away from a peer or a leader and possibly felt defeated or hurt? I'd like to ask you how ready you were to walk into that classroom full of students after that and to deliver a strong lesson around an instructional framework with differentiated practice and engaging strategies. In secondary education, where I now work, what about when those fights happen? They break out, fights in the bathroom, the hallways, when maybe you or your students are witness to, or you may be near it all. How easy is it for you to jump back into class and jump back into instruction? I presume that in both of these instances, you're going to tell me that it isn't easy and you were not ready. So let's ask ourselves why. Well, just as students find themselves in a fight, flight, or freeze situation, so do we as educators. And here's the question I'm going to ask you. What is it we do for students who find themselves there? Well, we give them time and means by which to allow emotions to regulate before joining the class again. This is all part of our SEL movement. It is all part of our emotional deregulation plan, restorative justice. We are all talking about this in schools. It's all part of the big picture. So why would we assume that teachers may not need time to allow those emotions to regulate? Do we believe that teachers are not human beings like our students? Because we are. When I see something that happens in my school, I always head in the direction of the issue. Am I nosy? No. No, I'm not nosy, but do you know what I am? I am someone who wants to be able to offer a teacher who may be in that emotional state, whether that's a medical emergency, a fight, an issue with a parent, whatever that looks like. I want to be able to offer that teacher a few minutes to leave that class with me and do whatever it takes to be ready to return in one emotional state that's conducive to their role. Perhaps they just need a few minutes to cry. Maybe they need to take a walk, splash some water on their face, get a drink. Whatever they need, I give them a break. And I'm always happy to cover them while they get that time. As an instructional coach, my role is to be supportive of teachers and helping them to bring their instructional best. Now, we may only see that around a table with data and planning, but in reality, it is about being empathetic to their emotions wherever those arise. Now, the second part of this is the caveat to the leader roles that we take on. We're not professional counselors. We do not have expertise to work in that capacity with others. So in the event that a teacher or a peer shares something with you that does not align with what you are able to do to support them, you must know when to connect them with a professional who can give them the help they need. Kindness, support, and empathy in working with others is crucial, but knowing when you are outside the lines of your support is even more important. So keep in touch with the people that you know can be supportive to you and make sure that you're maintaining that confidentiality, but also knowing when you have to go beyond the confidentiality piece and support others in their needs. So while this episode is short and sweet, I want to ask you to do a few things. First, I want you to notice when a peer or leader is struggling, when they're with that balancing of their emotions and teaching. And ask if you can help in any way. Can you offer them a break? I would also like for you to pay attention when emotions are hindering that instructional conversation you're trying to engage in. And I'm asking you to know when to shift gears, put that conversation on hold, and lean into understanding about where that teacher is at the time. I would ask that you would accept that sometimes you may almost always need a moment in it all. It is perfectly okay to sit down at your desk, close your eyes, and take a deep breath. Get to a place where you're ready to go back out there as an instructional leader. I'm going to ask that you give grace and lots of it. We often can't see what is truly at the core of the emotions that we encounter in others. So just giving grace can go a long way. The year to come will not look like last year, but I can also promise you this, it is not going to look like the 2018-19 school year either. So going into the unknown means that we don't quite know what emotions will exist. Leader emotions, teacher emotions, student emotions, parent emotions. We are likely to deal with them all. Being equipped with a few strategies to support you along the way is key. So go forth and be that teacher leader, that coach, that school or district leader who listens to truly hear and acts with empathy and support of others. Together, we will get through this year of rebuilding one step at a time. Well, that is where we will part today. But before I go, I want to remind you to stay connected on Instagram and Facebook or Twitter. You can find me at Coaching with JV on Instagram and Facebook. I am at Jamie Vanderg on Twitter. And don't forget to subscribe to get notified when there are new episodes. The podcast is on Spotify, Podbean, Amazon Music, Amazon Podcasts, or Google Podcasts. Additionally, if you want to be someone who is in the know and getting access first, every episode has an accompanying blog. There's a link to the episode in that blog. All you have to do is go to jamievandergrift.com, go to my blogs at the bottom, click subscribe. You'll be the first to know because I auto post everything, meaning that it will post and the next day I will share. But you will be the first to get access to both the blog and the podcast if you subscribe. Again, go back to jamievandergrift.com and find the option to subscribe there. Thank you so much for joining me today, and let's not finish the conversation here. I would love to hear ways that you plan to work through high emotional stakes in the year to come.